as far as, is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life. With all the charges he had to, he won't get out till 70 years old. He about 70. That's when they start talking about letting him come to a halfway house.
Gene Deal did not mince words when he opened the door on his past with Sean Diddy Combs. In a voice edged with the kind of conviction that comes only from living too close to danger, he claimed that the mogul once plotted his end, not through court filings, not through cease and desist letters, but with men from the streets. Deal said Diddy placed him in the crosshairs, choosing back alley justice instead of lawful channels. That detail alone stuns us, because this wasn't a faceless rival or anonymous critic. This was a man who had been part of the inner circle. And when someone who once carried the mogul's secret says he was targeted for elimination, the story shifts from celebrity gossip to something that looks more like a noir script. Only the actors are real.
Sean had to take responsibility for what he did as an individual. Sean is the one who pulled that gun out. Sean is the one who shot. So he has to take responsibility for that.
The image is jarring. On one side, we've got the polished mogul in tailored suits, sipping premium drinks at fashion shows, smiling for cameras, receiving awards. On the other, a whisper of shadow, hushed conversations, late-night calls, and street enforcers allegedly given orders that can't be spoken in daylight. Deal insists he slept past a fate that was supposed to close in on him, and now here he is, years later, narrating survival on a digital stage watched by millions. His tone carries that weight of a man who knows too much and realizes that speaking out may make him a moving target once again. And we can't help but ask, what does it take to silence someone who's lived inside your empire and now threatens to expose its skeletons?
Trying to find her, and her attorney has said that she may not be willing to come and testify anyway. So we'll
be
see.
interesting. Okay, we're moving on.
If Deal's allegations are even close to true, then his case wasn't some freak outlier. It might have been a piece in a longer pattern. Because around Diddy, shadows have a strange habit of swallowing people who were poised to speak. Take the recent court storm over a woman prosecutors called Victim 3. She had agreed to testify, had been expected to reveal what the government described as very personal and explosive details about her treatment under the mogul's reign. But right as jury selection wrapped and the trial loomed, she vanished. Not a late arrival, not a sudden illness, simply gone. Federal prosecutors admitted in open court they couldn't find her, couldn't even get her attorney to pick up the phone. The timing couldn't have been crueler for them or more convenient for him. And it gets stranger. Just a week before vanishing, this woman was reportedly so resolved that she wanted to use her real name in court, discarding anonymity. Then, silence. No messages, no court appearance, no answers. Some reports suggest she never wanted to testify at all, while others point to personal issues her lawyer was handling. But can we really call it coincidence that someone holding explosive testimony in a trial, threatening a mogul's life and freedom, disappears on cue? The whispers in back rooms and blogs call it the missing witness conspiracy, and once that phrase enters the conversation, it doesn't leave. Because if witnesses can evaporate before they even open their mouths, how much control does one man have over the very system meant to judge him?
The question is he a criminal? Is he basically akin to a mob boss running several criminal enterprises? And while it's very clear to me he is a depraved, disgusting person, we have to prove that he violated the law.
We can't overlook how prosecutors themselves revealed suspicions of witness tampering even before the trial opened. They argued Diddy's jail communications were riddled with attempts to bend the rules, placing unauthorized people on calls, reaching beyond the prison bars to shape narratives. That adds a darker dimension to Victim 3's disappearance. Did she vanish because she was never committed, as some outlets claim? Or did the old tactics of pressure and persuasion stretch into her life until her resolve broke? Either way, her silence carved a hole right at the heart of the prosecution's case.
Well, the things that I experienced with him were monster-like. That stuff almost destroyed my life.
And if we pull back, that hole doesn't stand alone. Gene Deal's story of street enforcers, the sudden gaps in testimony, the lawyers demanding answers that never come, each one becomes another brushstroke in a picture of intimidation and erasure. And in this portrait, Diddy is not the glamorous music pioneer, but the orchestrator of silencing campaigns. His critics compare him to old-world power figures who ran empires through favors and fear. Federal prosecutors have drawn comparisons to names like Jeffrey Epstein and R. Kelly, warning that if these charges hold, we're talking about multiple victims, multiple jurisdictions, and possibly a lifetime sentence behind iron bars. But before the court can rule, we're left staring at a pattern where people vanish and evidence melts away.
I thought he was this clean,
businessman who rise to the top because he was such a powerful and smart, educated man. I had no idea that he had this other side to him. And when I started to get exposed to his lifestyle, I started to really realize, like, this guy has an addiction. It's not just, once every few weeks, it's every day, every hour.
This is where the industry gossip sharpens into something more menacing. Because alongside these courtroom dramas is another rumor that's been circulating for years. A whisper about a so-called SEAL team, a cleanup crew said to work in the mogul's shadows. According to insiders, this wasn't just about silencing people with money. This was about erasing tapes, strong-arming potential witnesses, and rewriting the story before it ever hit the press. Industry veterans claim entire sets of recordings have disappeared. Hotel staff who witnessed too much were quietly relocated, and reporters who poked too deep found their stories buried under sudden editorial decisions. When you add that to the missing witness and the old street-level threats, the picture becomes almost cinematic in its darkness. If such a crew exists, then it's not simply about one man's personal protection. It's about preserving an empire built on fear and control. We've heard tales of phones disappearing during wild nights, cameras confiscated, drives wiped. We've heard of people offered payouts with papers thicker than any book, NDAs that turned into golden muzzles. And what makes it chilling is the consistency of the whispers. Too many stories, from too many corners, line up with the idea that when something threatened to break loose, invisible hands swept in to lock it down, like a shadow military moving in silence but leaving just enough of a trail for people like Gene Deal to hint at.
Same kind of extortion that we heard when Cassie took the stand and testified on that airplane ride back from France. Diddy said, "You don't do a freak-off, I'm going to release one of the freak-off videos that you are profiled in and humiliate you."
So we're left asking a question that gnaws at us the deeper we look. How far would a man go to bury his secrets and maintain his empire of power? Because every allegation, every vanishing act, every rumor of a private SEAL team suggests the same thing. The truth, whatever it is, may be far more dangerous than anyone wants to admit. And if Deal barely escaped one alleged plot, if Victim 3 dissolved into thin air, and if a cleanup crew has been sweeping behind the mogul for decades, then what we're looking at isn't just scandal, it's a system.
Continue to engage in all these freak-offs with him, and he sounds really pissed off.
Hey, I really don't know what's going on with you, but I just want to just give you a heads up that I'm about to really disappear on you. You feel me? I'm not going to be playing these games with you at all, at all. So I don't know, you think you silent treating me, and you think I'm going to be, nah. You'll have a rude awakening.
And then we come to the NDAs, the velvet-wrapped weapons in Diddy's alleged arsenal. We've seen powerful figures in Hollywood and politics wield these contracts like shields, but here, the whispers suggest something much darker. Former adult performer Jonathan Oddie claimed he was held under Diddy's control, describing himself as a slave of desire, trapped in the mogul's orbit. Oddie said he signed an NDA worth $5 million, not as a formality, but as a gag order designed to smother the truth. He alleged Diddy was terrified that he would expose him, and so money was offered like a lock and chain. That document, bearing what appears to be Diddy's signature, surfaced in the press, with Oddie's ex-wife even confirming its existence. If one contract of silence existed, how many more were quietly circulated in back rooms, slid across mahogany tables, or pushed into trembling hands?
If that's part of the indictment, that's someone like a blackmail. He was blackmailing people to be in the freak-offs. So that's federal. That could be that's a federal charge. He can't blackmail people to say, yo, listen here, you did it once and you're gonna do it again. That ain't gonna make it with the government or nobody.
Think about it. $5 million just to vanish a story. Not to pay for damages, not to settle a lawsuit, but to erase a voice. It forces us to ask the blunt question: how many voices have been bought? If Audie's claim holds weight, then this isn't a one-time payout, it's part of a pattern. A pattern where the empire's currency is not just music, but control. And each signed page becomes another brick in a wall built to protect the mogul from the truths that could sink him. We've already seen how silence falls around witnesses, add in contracts fortified by fortunes, and suddenly the empire doesn't just rely on loyalty, it enforces obedience through fear and gold.
They once worked together a long time ago. They're not friends now. They don't like each other. And yeah, 50 has taken every shot, especially when Diddy has been down.
What makes these NDAs so sinister isn't just the money, it's what they cover. Because behind the legal jargon and non-disclosure clauses, there are allegations of twisted parties and coercion. Industry insiders claim that these agreements became standard tools in the mogul's world. A whispered contract here, a payoff there, each one sealing lips before stories reached daylight. And if $5 million is the going rate for one man's silence, what about the countless others who may have accepted smaller sums, less publicized, but just as binding? How many stories never even brushed against the spotlight?
Referred to me as Wild King Nights. And what a Wild King Night was when him and a guest would go to a hotel room or be at his home, his bedroom, and they would have intimate gatherings. I would have to go and prep that hotel room, which consisted of baby oil, astroglide.
And then we step into the vault, the digital vault that has become one of the most disturbing rumors circling Diddy's downfall. When federal agents raided his mansions, reports said they seized more than just hard drives. They found footage, hours of it. Videos said to show the infamous freak-offs, those long, substance-fueled marathons where participants were allegedly coerced into acts while the mogul watched, sometimes recording, sometimes collecting. According to federal filings, the vault may have been more than a private archive. It may have been leverage, a grotesque currency. If you were ever in one of those rooms, if a camera ever caught your face, then the mogul had power over you for life. The raids themselves painted a surreal picture. Agents cataloged more than 1,000 bottles of lubricant and baby oil, stacked like supplies for a bizarre ritual. The sheer volume raises questions. Were these props for indulgence or stockpiles for events that blur the line between entertainment and control? Combine that with the seized electronics, and it feels less like the home of a music legend and more like a warehouse of secrets. Secrets that could topple reputations, ruin marriages, even sink political careers if the whispers about high-profile attendees are true.
Are you surprised by the evidence that's already coming out in the criminal trial?
No, I'm not surprised. I experienced some of those things. Witness violence.
This digital vault becomes a character of its own in the narrative. Is it a trophy case built to immortalize the mogul's grip on others? Or is it a weapon held in reserve to keep participants silent, terrified that one leak could destroy their lives? Either possibility is grotesque. And yet, in the wake of the raids, prosecutors hinted they'd recovered enough footage to corroborate allegations of coercion. That makes us wonder how many people's lives are trapped inside those hard drives, their voices muted because the evidence hangs over them like a guillotine.
I think that they don't want, if they was in any of those freak-off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions, they don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their...
Parallels to other infamous scandals are unavoidable. Jeffrey Epstein had his black book, Harvey Weinstein had his army of NDAs. Now the whispers say Diddy had his vault. Each of these cases carries the same chilling pattern. Power consolidated not just by wealth or influence, but by binding people in a cycle of shame and secrecy. And unlike tapes that can be destroyed, digital archives leave traces that linger forever. Even if wiped, even if hidden, copies and fragments can resurface, which begs the question how much of that vault is already in the hands of investigators and how much remains locked away, ready to be weaponized at the right moment. And then comes the name that refuses to fade from hip-hop's darkest chapters, Keefe D. Duane. Keefe D. Davis is now on trial for his role in the 1996 Las Vegas ambush that claimed Shakur's life. But what drags him back into today's storm is not just the shooting itself, it's his long history of interviews, memoirs, and now court filings where he repeatedly tied Diddy to that night. He alleged that Diddy promised millions for the heads of both Shakur and Suge Knight, a claim that has resurfaced in legal documents and media coverage like a ghost, haunting the mogul's carefully polished image.
You don't think people take selfies on a roller coaster?
They ask you to put away, you put away, and then once you start it, you just pull it back out the phone.
So everybody knows you're going to violate it, but you can't violate it in front of the person knowing that you're going to violate it later.
The significance of Keefe D's words can't be overstated. For decades, the Shakur case was wrapped in speculation, coded street tales, and unanswered questions. Then suddenly, transcripts of Keefe's 2009 police interview emerged, in which he reportedly mentioned Diddy dozens of times. He described the mogul as being terrified of Suge Knight, desperate to strike back after Shakur diss track Hit 'Em Up threw fuel on the East Coast-West Coast fire. Whether truth or exaggeration, the detail is damning, because it shows Diddy's name woven into the fabric of a feud that turned bloody. What makes Keefe's claims even more explosive is their timing. He is not just resurfacing these stories in documentaries or memoirs for clout. He is now standing trial facing life-altering consequences, with prosecutors wielding his past confessions like sharp blades. If he chooses to implicate Diddy directly in court, even as a way of lessening his own punishment, That could drag the mogul into a maelstrom far bigger than anything we've seen in the current human trafficking case. Keefe becomes the ultimate wildcard, a man who has lived both in the streets and under federal interrogation lights, with nothing left to lose. Skeptics point to Keefe's shifting narratives. Sometimes he claimed Orlando Anderson, his nephew, pulled the trigger. Other times he shielded details under the so-called code of the streets. His stories changed with the setting: police rooms, television cameras, memoir pages. And yet one detail remained stubbornly consistent: Diddy's name. Always present, always looming. The weight of that repetition has forced prosecutors, reporters, and even former federal agents to treat his claims as more than idle boasting.
Down. That's one reason, other than the Irv Gotti that 50 was going through and the poison they was putting in about 50, he had to go elsewhere to California or with Jay and not with Dre and Eminem.
When we connect these dots to the present, the implications become staggering. A mogul already facing allegations of coercion, trafficking, and violence in the 2020s, also being dragged back into accusations of orchestrating bloodshed in the 1990s. It paints the picture of an empire where fear and control are not occasional tactics but recurring strategies across decades. And if Keefe D decides to unload more details while fighting for his own survival, those revelations could bridge the gap between Diddy's past street wars and his current federal entanglements. What chills us most is the possibility that Keefe holds receipts we haven't seen yet. In the coded world of gangs, favors, and street deals, evidence isn't always paper trails. It's testimonies, remembered conversations, whispered deals at diners or parking lots. If he chooses to share more about alleged payments, meetings, or intermediaries, it could lend prosecutors fresh ammunition. And considering the timing of federal raids on Diddy's mansions, we can't ignore the possibility that investigators are already chasing those threads behind closed doors.
Look at Diddy, for instance. Let's take a look at him. Let's take a look at, he has videos. He has videos of the parties. Now, what I've heard, which I don't know how much of it is in mainstream media, I don't really follow the story that much, but what I've heard from friends that are attorneys, friends of mine that have represented me before, agents and so on, is there's a bidding war going on.
For Diddy's defenders, Keefe D's credibility is easy to dismiss. An aging gangster looking for a lifeline by dragging a famous name into his mess. But even dismissals can't erase the fact that Keefe's voice now echoes in multiple courtrooms. He's been cited in filings, quoted in interviews, dissected in documentaries. Whether liar, truth teller, or something in between, his testimony adds yet another layer of danger for the mogul, who is already fighting for his freedom in a separate case that could put him behind bars for life. So we stand here with two parallel dramas colliding: the modern-day federal charges over coercion and trafficking, and the decades-old mystery of Shakur's final night in Las Vegas. At the center of both, through whispers and transcripts, sits Sean Diddy Combs. And hovering on the edge, a man named Keefe D, who might just decide that the only way to save himself is to detonate the secrets he's been sitting on for nearly 30 years.
PD named Diddy 77 times in court documents related to Tupac's.
The longer we trace these threads, the tighter the net appears. A missing witness who evaporates at trial. NDAs worth millions, allegedly drafted to hush people who could blow the story wide open. Mansion raids uncovering hundreds of bottles, tapes, and evidence that feels like something out of a dystopian novel. If each piece of this puzzle connects, the picture is devastating. An empire not of music, but of silence, built on contracts, fear, and leverage. And as federal prosecutors circle, the possibility of the entire structure collapsing grows. With every headline, the walls are closing in and the cracks are showing. Diddy once projected untouchability, a mogul insulated by wealth and charisma. But with federal agents seizing evidence, with accusers speaking louder, and with industry insiders peeling back the curtain, the myth of invincibility looks like it's shattering. We're left to wonder, if this is what's already been revealed, what horrifying truths are still hidden in the shadows, and who will be brave enough to expose them next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to know what you think. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and remember, the truth has a way of forcing itself into the light.